Maya Williams woke before dawn most days. She lived in a small blue house at the end of Willow Lane in Maple Ridge. From her window, she could see the tall oak trees that lined her street. The morning air smelled of earth and fresh grass. Pressed her feet into a pair of worn slippers and padded down the hall. Her room was full of photographs she had taken, a bird in flight, an old man's wrinkled hands, flowers pushing through the cracks of a sidewalk. Each photo told a quiet story she carried in her heart. At 17, Maya was already known for her gentle smile and steady hands. She carried her camera wherever she went, even when she walked to the bus stop for school. She had a small leather bag filled with extra batteries, film rolls, and a notebook for her ideas. When she spoke, her voice was soft but sure, and her friends often turned to her when they needed a calm ear. She did not seek the spotlight. Instead, she let her photos do the talking, capturing moments of real meaning in a world too busy to notice. Every weekday morning, Maya and her father, David, sat at the round kitchen table for breakfast. David poured 2 bowls of oatmeal and topped them with sliced bananas. He always made an extra cup of tea for himself. They ate quietly, listening to the soft buzz of the radio. Often they spoke about small things, the weather, the books Maya read, or the new volunteer project at the community center. Their conversation was gentle, filled with care. Maya loved these breakfasts. It reminded her that, no matter what, home was a safe place. David Williams worked 2 jobs to give Maya the chances he never had. By day, he was a mechanic at the local garage, his hands stained with grease but sure and strong. In the evenings, he cleaned offices at the town library, making sure every shelf and table gleamed. He never complained about the long hours. He welcomed the work because it meant Maya could follow her dreams, saved every extra dollar, stacking it in an old tin box under his bed. He dreamed of buying her a new camera lens someday, one that could capture even more of the world's hidden beauty. Maple Ridge was a town of neat lawns and white picket fences. People greeted each other by name on Main Street, yet under the friendly faces, old worries lingered. Some families had lived here for generations. Others, like Maya's, had come more recently, drawn by the promise of a new start. The magazine racks in the grocery store boasted community events and local heroes. But behind the smiles on flyers, some hearts held old views about race and class. In classrooms and lunchtime chatter, these views sometimes showed themselves in small, sharp barbs. On the other side of town, Jonathan Whitman awoke in a grand bedroom with silk sheets. His walls were painted a soft gray, and his floor gleamed with polished wood. He stretched and glanced at the framed diploma of a private school he would soon attend. His mother knocked lightly on the door and brought him orange juice and toast. His father, a successful businessman, greeted him with a nod and spoke of big plans for the family's company. To Jonathan, life felt like an endless game of expectations. He wanted freedom, but he also knew the rules he had to follow. Jonathan drove a sleek black car to school each morning. He parked in the reserved lot by the front entrance, greeting friends with a confident grin. He wore designer clothes and carried a bag full of the latest gadgets. At school, he floated through hallways like he owned every step. Teachers often praised his charm, even when he did not turn in his assignments. In the lunchroom, he sat with the popular crowd, swapping jokes and selfies, yet he felt restless. He longed for something real, something that would wake him from the smooth, safe path he was on. Although Maya and Jonathan attended the same school, they moved in different worlds. Maya walked home on foot, her camera bouncing gently at her side. Jonathan's car passed her on Willow Lane every day, its engine a low hum she barely noticed. Sometimes his driver waited at the corner, his eyes on Maya as if she were someone to keep an eye on. Maya sensed their glances, but she did not know their names or faces. She focused on her own goals, saving money for film, practicing editing photos, and planning the next community project. David noticed the gap between their worlds. He picked up on the way some parents at school events greeted Jonathan with warm hugs, then barely nodded at him. He watched as whispers followed Maya in the hallway, even though she stayed silent and did no harm. He felt a quiet ache for dignity, his own and his daughter's, yet he never let it show. In his calm voice, he reminded Maya that her worth came from her heart and her art, not from the cheers of strangers. He taught her that true strength grew from kindness and respect. Maya loved to volunteer at the community center on Saturday mornings. She helped younger children paint pictures, using her camera to capture their proud smiles. She arranged her photos on the center's bulletin board, so everyone could see the simple joy of each brushstroke. David dropped her off early and watched. As she guided the little ones with patient hands, he felt proud and wished that the wider town could see Maya's light the way he saw it every day. He dreamed of a place where people looked beyond color or wealth and saw each other as neighbors. Jonathan spent his Saturdays in the Whitman Mansion's library, doing extra work for college applications. His parents wanted him to lead the family business someday. He listened to a tutor's advice on essay writing, nodding as he pretended to be interested. His tutor asked him about a volunteer project, and he mentioned a charity golf event. He spoke of it as if it were a game to win. Yet, when he saw a photo of Maya's community center on a local website, he felt a flicker of curiosity. He wondered what it would be like to meet someone with a different view of the world. Spring was coming, and the town prepared for its annual fundraiser in the square. Banners fluttered in the breeze, and townspeople talked about the music, the food trucks, and the hand-baked pies. Maya thought about setting up a small gallery of her photos. She imagined showing the town moments of joy that might otherwise go unnoticed. Jonathan heard his parents discuss the event as another chance to show off the family name. He wondered if they expected him to make a grand entrance. Neither of them knew that, before long, their paths would cross in a way that would change Maple Ridge forever. On the eve of the fundraiser, Maya packed her camera bag with extra film and printed invitations for her photo exhibit. She felt a mix of excitement and nerves. David wrapped an arm around her shoulders and said, "Your work matters, Maya. Don't be afraid to share your vision." She smiled and nodded, feeling his steady support. Across town, Jonathan loaded his car with a suit and his father's gold watch. He looked at himself in the rearview mirror and practiced a polite smile for the evening. In his mind, it was just another night under the glare of town attention. Maple Ridge looked peaceful under the moonlight. Street lamps glowed softly, and the scent of magnolia flowers floated on the air. In 2 days, the town square would fill with laughter and music. Yet as Maya and Jonathan prepared in their separate corners of the town, neither knew how much was at stake. Under the calm surface, the currents of hope and tension swirled. In the coming days, an act meant as a simple joke would release those currents, and the people of Maple Ridge would see themselves in a new light, some with shame, some with pride, and many with the chance to stand together. The morning of the town's spring fundraiser dawned bright and clear. Colorful banners snapped gently in the breeze above the cobblestone square. Stalls lined the edges, each one decorated with fresh flowers or ribbon in shades of yellow, pink, and green. Food trucks offered lemonade, popcorn, and warm pies, while a local band set up on a small stage near the old fountain. Children laughed as they chased bubbles blown by volunteers. Maya Williams arrived early, her camera swinging at her side. She carried a portfolio of her favorite photographs, simple moments she had captured in and around Maple Ridge. She laid each print carefully on a folding table draped with a white cloth. The morning sun made the images glow, a wrinkled hand holding a puppy's paw, a boy's shy smile behind a paper mask, a mother and daughter twirling in a patch of daisies. Maya wanted the town to see the beauty in everyday life. David Williams stood beside his daughter, helping her adjust the frames and straighten the prints. He wore his best shirt, a crisp blue button-down, and held a coffee cup in one hand. He watched Maya's face light up as people paused to look. Soon, neighbors stopped by. Mrs. Harper from the library praised Maya's golden eye. Mr. Torres from the bakery smiled at a photo of his grandson at a baseball game. Their words warmed Maya's heart. She breathed deeply, feeling hopeful that her work could bring people closer rather than drive them apart. Across the square, Jonathan Whitman arrived with a small group of friends. He stepped from his father's sleek car and adjusted the collar of his blazer. Helper pinned the Whitman family's banner white letters on a navy background to one side of the bandstand. Jonathan smiled and waved as his classmates cheered. He moved toward the food trucks, accepting a soda from one of the volunteers. He laughed with his friends about last weekend's golf game and the new video console he had just received. World felt easy here, a place where his name opened doors and his jokes earned applause. Yet as Jonathan strolled past Maya's table, something caught his eye. On the corner of her display was a printed flyer for the community center's mural project one Maya had organized. It featured Maya's photograph of local children at play. Jonathan recognized the image. He had seen it shared online by the community center page. A thought flickered in his mind. What if he could make this afternoon more interesting? What if he could stir up a little excitement at the fundraiser? He leaned closer, pretending to admire a photo of an elderly man's hands resting on a weathered fence post. Maya looked up and offered him a polite nod. She had never spoken to him before, just a quick smile in the hallway at school. He nodded back, then reached out to touch the edge of the frame. His fingers brushed the print, and Maya winced slightly. "Nice," he said, his voice low and casual. Then, before she could respond, he lifted his phone and snapped a picture. Of Maya's best images, the click of his camera sounded too loud in the quiet morning. Maya frowned. "Please don't do that without asking," she said quietly. Her voice held no anger, only a polite request. Jonathan shrugged and tucked his phone away. He walked off with his friends. Maya watched him go, her stomach twisting. She took a steadying breath and turned back to the prints. She reminded herself why she was here, to share moments of kindness and joy. By midday, the square was full. The band played a cheerful tune, and families wandered between stalls. A long line curled around the ice cream truck. The mayor gave a short speech about community spirit, reminding everyone why they had come together. Then she invited local artists to show their work. Maya's heart pounded as she listened. She wondered if anyone would remember her table when the mayor spoke. She squeezed her father's hand for a moment of comfort. Now suddenly a voice crackled through the loudspeaker. "Now, for a special display brought to you by the Whitman Foundation." A hush fell over the crowd. Maya looked up, puzzled. The banner for the foundation was pinned above the stage. Jonathan's banner. She felt a cold wave of unease. David squeezed her hand tighter. He glanced at Maya, concern in his eyes. Stage lights flickered on, aiming at a blank screen that had been set up behind the bandstand. Jonathan stepped forward, wearing a grin. He tapped on the soundboard controls. The screen came to life with an image, a snapshot from Maya's private photo collection. It showed Maya in a quiet moment, hugging her best friend, both smiling. The photo was gentle, sweet, a memory meant only for friends. Yet here it was, full screen, for all to see. A gasp rippled through the onlookers. Maya's face heated. She recognized the photo immediately. She had shared it with just a few friends. Online, never expecting it to leave her small circle, now it floated larger than life, displayed without her consent. She put a hand to her mouth, stunned. Murmurs rose in the crowd, some curious, some disapproving. Maya looked at her father, his jaw clenched, but he stayed silent, waiting. Jonathan stepped closer to the microphone. "Isn't that a great shot?" he said, voice light, captured by our very own local artist, Maya Williams. "Let's give her a round of applause." Half the audience forced polite claps. The other half watched in awkward silence. Maya's best friend, Tanya, covered her mouth, tears glinting in her eyes. Another friend, Ben, shook his head and turned away. The photo began to feel like a bright floodlight on Maya's private life. Then Jonathan tapped the screen again, and the image changed. It was a collage of Maya's social media posts, holiday dinners, birthday cakes, friends hugging. Jonathan had pulled them all together. The crowd laughed, thinking it was a joke. Maya's heart pounded so hard she thought everyone could hear it. She wanted to disappear. Jonathan took one more step. He leaned close to the big screen and pressed his phone to his ear. "Hey, Instagram," he said, speaking into the phone as if on a call. "Look at me, hanging with the famous Maya Williams." He snapped a selfie with the projected image behind him. Maya watched in horror as Jonathan posted the photo "Live for all his followers." The caption read, "Chillin' with the town's amateur photographer." Crowd cheered, and some reached for their own phones to share the moment. Maya dropped her camera on the table. Film canisters rolled across the cloth with quiet thumps. She backed away, her legs weak. Her chest felt tight, as if she could not breathe. Tanya moved to her side and wrapped an arm around her shoulder. Maya tried to thank her friend, but the words stuck in her throat. David was at his daughter's side in an instant. He put a gentle hand on her back. "Let's go," he said, his voice low but urgent. He guided Maya through the crowd, past curious onlookers and murmurs of disapproval. He ignored the bright screen still showing Maya's photos. He led her to the edge of the square, where the music was softer. Maya's tears fell freely now. Tanya walked beside them, ready to offer support. They reached a quiet alley just off the square. Maya sank onto a low bench, her head in her hands. She felt small and exposed. She shut her eyes and tried to remember her morning calm, how she had been proud of her work, how she had believed in her art. Now shame and fear threatened to drown those memories. David sat beside her. "Maya," he said gently, "look at me." She raised her head, red-eyed and trembling. "I am so sorry," he said. "I cannot let him treat you like that." His voice shook with emotion, but he stayed calm. "Did nothing wrong." Maya pressed her hand to her chest, feeling the rapid beat of her heart. She nodded, but words refused to come. Behind them, the sound of laughter and music drifted through the alleyway. Somewhere a child cried, "Dada." Maya took a deep breath, trying to push back the panic rising in her chest. She looked at her father, at his steady eyes. She saw his love and his anger mixed together. She felt a flicker of strength. Tomorrow, she thought, tomorrow I will stand tall again. For now, she allowed herself to lean into her father's arm. In that moment of quiet, she realized that even when the world felt unfair, she was not alone. She had family, friends, and all those who believed in her talent. The humiliation stung, but it would not break her. Not if she held on to the strength she had felt back at the table when neighbors admired her photos. Not if she remembered the first time she saw the joy in someone's eyes through her lens. And so, in the alley beside the bustling fundraiser, Maya let her tears fall, but she also let her father's promise wrap around her like a shield. Tomorrow, she would face the town again, and she would not face it alone. Thought for a couple of seconds, Maya woke the next morning to the steady beep of her alarm. Her room felt smaller somehow, the posters on the walls closing in. She lay still for a moment, tracing the faded pattern on her comforter. The events of yesterday danced in her mind like shadows. She knew she had to face another day at school, where whispers and curious looks waited for her. She slipped out of bed, careful not to wake her father, and dressed in her favorite jeans and a soft gray sweater. She tried to smooth the wrinkles from her clothes, hoping to smooth away the sharp edges of her worry too. In the kitchen, David poured hot cocoa into 2 mugs. He sat across from Maya, gentle in his silence. The morning light slipped through the window, illuminating the steam rising from their drinks. Maya wrapped her hands around the warm cup and breathed in its sweetness. She forced a small smile for her father, grateful for his calm presence. He glanced at her, his eyes kind but firm, and nodded. No words were needed. She knew he would stand by her side no matter what. The ride to Maple Ridge High was quiet. Maya stared out the window, watching dew glisten on the grass by the road. Birds hopped in the hedges, pecking for breakfast. Wondered if they sensed her fear, or if they lived free of such worries. David parked at the usual spot near the entrance. He turned to her with a steady look. "You're stronger than you know," he said softly. Maya blinked back tears. "I'll try," she whispered. He reached over and squeezed her hand. Then he led her out of the car, his eyes holding hers for a moment before he drove away. Inside the school, the hallways felt different. Blockers clicked open and closed. Students jostled each other, their laughter echoing off the walls. Maya's heart pounded as she walked to her locker. She cradled her books to her chest, as if they could shield her. A few classmates glanced her way, and then turned away quickly. She saw phone screens light up. Someone whispered her name. She kept walking. Her camera hung at her side like an anchor, and she gripped its strap, drawing strength from its familiar weight. In homeroom, Miss Carter greeted Maya with a gentle nod. She handed back last week's art assignments. Maya took hers and found a sketch of a sunflower she had drawn. A small gold star sticker gleamed in the corner. Maya's chest tightened as she remembered Jonathan's prank. She forced her fingers to remain steady as she lifted the paper. She sank into her seat and stared at the board, where morning announcements scrolled by. The basketball game, science fair, and the word spring fundraiser recap soon. She wondered if anyone would mention her. She tried to imagine their eyes filled with respect instead of curiosity. The final bell for homeroom rang, and students spilled into the corridor. Maya moved toward her first period class, English literature. She slipped into a seat near the window, hoping the glass would shield her from too many stares. Outside, the sun warmed the brick walls, and a few students sat on the grass, their heads bent over books. She drew in a slow breath, trying to calm the flutter in her chest. Then she opened her notebook and readied her pen, focusing on the words of the poem on the board, letting their rhythm carry her away from the buzzing tension. At lunch, Maya took her tray and scanned the cafeteria. Tables clustered by grade and interest groups. The art club sat together, weaving colored bracelets. The jocks rumbled in, gathering at long desks. The popular crowd, Jonathan's group, occupied the far corner. She felt a squeeze of panic as she realized she would have to pass them. She headed instead to a quieter corner near the windows, where a few of her friends waited. Tanya and Ben smiled when they saw her. They rose, and Maya followed them to an empty table by the wall. Tanya slid into the seat across from Maya. "You okay?" she asked softly. Maya nodded, trying to keep her voice calm. "I will be." Ben sat beside her, offering a kind look. They talked about the upcoming art show and group projects. Tanya passed Maya an extra cookie. "You need sugar," she said with a grin. Maya laughed, and for a moment the day felt lighter. She felt grateful for their support, like a lighthouse guiding her through rough waters. She realized that even when the crowd shifted against her, her true friends stood by her. Meanwhile, across town, Jonathan Whitman sat in the Whitman mansion's study. He leaned back in a high-backed chair, scrolling through his phone. Notifications from yesterday's fundraiser flooded his screen. Likes, comments, shares. Some classmates praised his joke. Others called him out for being cruel. At a message from his father, "Good show. Keep it up." His chest tightened, but he pushed the feeling down. He rose and tossed his phone onto the desk. He paced the polished floor, brushing a hand through his hair. He wondered if he had gone too far, or if he had merely broken the rules of a game. He did not fully understand. Back at school, word of Maya's humiliation spread further. A video clip of Jonathan's prank popped up on social media. It showed Maya's photo floating behind Jonathan as he laughed into the microphone. Viewers left comments. Some made jokes. Others expressed shock. A few sent messages to Maya, words of apology and kindness. One student offered to help her press charges. Another invited her to a peaceful demonstration. Maya's heart raced. As she saw the messages, she felt both comforted and overwhelmed. The private pain now felt public, stretched across the internet like an exposed photograph. After lunch, Maya headed to the guidance counselor's office. Mrs. Lee greeted her with a warm smile. She had called Maya in after noticing her distress. They sat together in soft chairs. Mrs. Lee asked how Maya felt, and Maya's tears began to fall again. She spoke of shame, of being seen when she did not want to be. Mrs. Lee listened without judgment, placing a gentle hand on Maya's arm. She offered to speak to the principal, to enforce school policies on harassment. Maya shook her head. "I don't want more attention," she whispered. Mrs. Lee nodded. "Then let's find the right way to protect you." She suggested a safe space during breaks where Maya could go if she felt overwhelmed. As the final bell rang, Maya packed her bag slowly. She lingered in the quiet classroom, letting the stillness wrap around her. She thought of her father's words, that she was stronger than she knew. She thought of Tanya and Ben waiting outside. She closed her notebook and lifted her head. She felt a small spark of determination. She would not let this moment define her. She would find a way to reclaim her story, to show the town the person behind the camera. Outside, Tanya and Ben met her at the door. They walked together to the car. Maya felt lighter with each step beside them. She reached into her bag and pulled out her camera. She clicked a photo of the late afternoon light falling on the school's red bricks. Tanya raised an eyebrow. "See?" Maya said, smiling. "Beauty everywhere." She slipped the camera strap over her shoulder. In that moment, she chose to see the world through her lens again, not through the cruelty of that screen. When Maya arrived home, David was waiting on the porch, his face calm but expectant. He guided her inside and closed the door gently. He set out 2 cups of tea and motioned for her to sit. Maya sank into the sofa, her legs still trembling. David sat beside her, his hand warm on her knee. He spoke quietly about her strength, about how proud he was of her. Then he told her what he had done. He met with the mayor and the school board after work. He filed a formal complaint and asked for clear rules against digital bullying. Maya blinked at her father, surprised by his quiet resolve. She felt a rush of love and gratitude. David leaned forward. "You did not deserve that," he said softly. "Tomorrow, we will face this together." Maya nodded, her tears now mixed with relief. She rested her head against his shoulder, letting his promise of action wrap around her like a protective blanket. In the safe warmth of her home, she realized that her pain had sparked something larger, call for respect and dignity that she alone could not stand. But with her father's strength beside hers, she was no longer alone. And that made all the difference. The morning sun felt warm on David's face as he stepped onto the front porch. He held a folded flyer in his hand, bright letters reading "Respect Rally, Stand Against Public Shaming." Behind him, the front door opened and Maya appeared. Carrying her camera bag, she looked at the flyer, surprise in her eyes. David smiled gently. "Today," he said, "we make our stand." Maya nodded, her heart fluttering with equal parts hope and fear. They drove to town hall together. David gripped the steering wheel, mind busy with plans. He would meet the mayor in an hour and present the complaint he had filed with the school board. Then he would speak at the community center to invite everyone to the rally. Maya sat beside him, clutching her camera. She felt nervous or private. Pain would become something public again. But she also felt her father's calm determination. It gave her courage. At town hall, the mayor's office smelled of polished wood and fresh flowers. Mayor Thompson greeted David with a firm handshake. He was a tall man with silver hair and kind eyes. "Mr. Williams," he said, "I read your letter. Let's talk." They sat at a large table. David laid out his documents. A clear statement of what had happened, copies of the school's code of conduct, and notes from Maya's friends. The mayor read each page, nodding. "I agree there must be rules," Mayor Thompson said. "No one should face public humiliation for a private moment." He tapped his pen. "I will call a special session of the school board this afternoon. We will discuss new policies on digital privacy and respectful conduct." David felt relief wash over him like cool water. He thanked the mayor, who promised to speak in support of the rally later. Next, David and Maya walked down Main Street to the community center. The board inside was already arranging chairs. Posters for the Respect rally hung from walls, images of linked hands, and words like dignity and unity. Volunteers set out water bottles and snacks. David greeted each person with a nod, introducing Maya as the artist whose photos had shown the beauty of everyday life. Maya felt shy at first, but volunteers smiled at her and said they had seen her work. She stood a little taller. When the time came, David stepped onto a small stage next to a folding table. He held a microphone and looked out at the chairs filling slowly. People trickled in: students, parents, local business owners, and teachers. Some wore white ribbons pinned to their shirts. A banner behind David fluttered. "Respect Rally. Maple Ridge stands together." He bowed his head and took a breath. "Thank you. David began, "for coming today." His voice was calm but clear. "Yesterday my daughter faced something no one should." A private moment was taken and displayed for a crowd. She did nothing wrong. We are here to say that in Maple Ridge we value kindness and dignity. We will teach our children to respect each other online and in person. A soft murmur of agreement rose from the crowd. Maya stood at the side of the stage, her camera at her waist. She watched her father's face, steady and strong. She felt pride and a spark of hope. Perhaps this moment could change her town. David went on, "We have asked the school board to adopt clear rules against public shaming. We will teach empathy in our schools. We'll remind each other that behind every screen and every photo is a human heart." He paused and looked at Maya. "My daughter is not alone. We stand with her today, and we stand for each other." He raised his hand and the crowd clapped. The sound filled the room like a wave. After David spoke, Maya was invited to share her thoughts. She stepped onto the stage, her legs shaking at first. She held the microphone close, feeling its weight. "I love photography," she said softly. "I want my art to show what is good in the world." She glanced at her father, who offered an encouraging nod. "Yesterday my photos were used to make me feel small. But today, I hope they can help us see how kindness matters." Her voice grew stronger. "We all make mistakes. But we can choose to lift each other up instead of tearing each other down." She placed the camera on the table. "Thank you for being here." The room filled with applause again, louder and longer. Maya felt tears behind her eyes, but they were not tears of pain, they were tears of relief. She looked at the faces. Around her, some were smiling, some nodding, all listening. She realized they saw her not as a joke, but as a person whose story mattered. After the speeches, people mingled in the hall. A local news crew arrived, setting up a camera and lights. They interviewed David first. "Mr. Williams," the reporter asked, "what do you hope this rally will achieve?" David spoke clearly. "I hope our town will adopt respect as a core value. That no one will ever feel humiliated for a private moment again." Then the reporter turned to Maya. "How does it feel to stand here today?" Maya swallowed and said, "It feels like I have a voice. That voice matters." The news clip later that evening showed David and Maya standing together under the rally banner. The reporter's voiceover spoke of a father's love and a community's promise to change. Across town, families watched the story on their TVs. Comments appeared on social media praising the Williams family for bravery. Even some of Jonathan's classmates shared the clip, admitting they had not realized the harm of such a joke. Meanwhile, word of the rally reached Jonathan Whitman. He was at home, scrolling through his feed on a tablet, saw the news clip of his father speaking in favor of the prank. Jonathan's father sat beside him, frowning at the screen. "This is not a joke, son," he said. "You hurt someone you barely know." Jonathan stared at the clip of Maya speaking. He felt a twist of guilt in his stomach. For the first time, he saw the rally not as an attack on him, but as a sign that he had broken someone's spirit. That night, Jonathan found his camera one his parents had given him for his trip next month. He stared at it, turning it in his hands. He thought of Maya's photos of children painting at the community center of ordinary beauty captured with care. He realized his own lens had been aimed at making someone feel small. The thought made him silent. He slipped out of the room and went to his bed, the camera still in his hands. In the days that followed, the town buzzed with talk of the rally. The school board convened and passed policies banning unauthorized displays of personal images. They added lessons on digital privacy to the health curriculum and training for teachers on how to handle online harassment. Posters went up in halls. "Think before you post, and respect starts with you." Maya walked those halls and saw her own words on the walls. Words about kindness and dignity. One afternoon, David and Maya returned to the community center. Volunteers were planning a workshop on photography and empathy. They wanted Maya to teach a session. Maya set up her camera and welcomed a small group of students. She showed them how to look for small moments: a cat stretching in sunlight, an older neighbor watering flowers, a friend's quiet laughter. She guided them gently, reminding them that every person has a story worth telling. Outside the workshop room, David spoke with the mayor again. Maple Ridge had begun to change. Neighbors who once barely knew each other greeted with new warmth. At the grocery store, people nodded at Maya and her father. In the coffee shop, a barista printed David's complaint letter and offered free coffee to those who signed a pledge for respect. The town felt different, more alive, more caring. Late one evening, Maya sat on her bed and opened her camera bag. She found the photo Jonathan had snapped of her at the fundraiser still on her phone. She hesitated, then deleted it. It was a symbol of pain she no longer wanted to carry. Instead, she loaded a new photo, a young girl's proud smile as she held a paintbrush. That photo would be the first in her next exhibit, one about the power of kindness. David knocked softly and entered the room. He sat beside Maya and looked at the photo on her screen. "That's beautiful," he said. "That shows what we stand for." Maya smiled, feeling her father's pride like a gentle breeze. "Yes," she whispered. "That's the story I want to tell, Maple Ridge." The respect rally had sparked more than policies. It had begun a conversation, a promise that every person, every private moment would be honored. And in that promise, Maya and her father found a new strength, the strength to heal, to forgive, and to shine a light on the best of the human heart. The morning of the town's big respect rally arrived with a clear sky and a gentle breeze. Mason jars of wildflowers lined the edge of the square, and families gathered early, carrying handmade signs that read, "Dignity for all and kindness wins." Maya stood beside her father at the back of the crowd, her camera hanging from her neck. She felt a thrill of hope as she looked at the sea of faces, students in art club t-shirts, teachers in school board caps, small children holding parents' hands. Even strangers from neighboring towns had come to show their support. It felt like the whole world had paused to stand together as the mayor took the stage, spoke of unity and the power of a single act to change many hearts. He praised Maya and David for their courage. Maya's heart swelled with pride when he asked her to join him. She stood beside him, her father's hand on her shoulder, and waved at the crowd. A gentle wave of cheer swept over her. She breathed in the scent of freshly cut grass and felt the warmth of the sun on her face. In that moment, she understood that her story was no longer just about her own pain. It was about the promise that every person in Maple Ridge would be seen with respect. After the mayor finished, the crowd moved to a long line of booths where townspeople pledged to think before you post, and signed a giant scroll that would hang in the school hallway. Maya wandered among the booths, pausing to sign her name and take photos of smiling neighbors. She saw Jonathan Whitman approaching a booth with a hesitant smile. He carried a blank poster board and a set of colorful markers. Maya looked at him, and he raised his hand in greeting. He offered her a small nod, his voice soft when he spoke her name. "Sorry," he said simply. His apology was unhurried, as if he had thought about the words carefully. Maya felt a flutter in her chest. She saw in his eyes a trace of sincerity she had not expected. She nodded and said, "Thank you for saying that." It was enough for... Now, nearby, David watched the exchange, his expression calm but pleased. He turned back to greet a group of teachers who thanked him for standing up to protect their students. He smiled and urged them to keep the conversation alive in their classrooms. He spoke of empathy and how they could teach children to look behind the screen and remember that every click and comment touched a human heart. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, people gathered around a large blank canvas set up near the fountain. The mayor invited everyone to add a brushstroke or a handprint. "This will be our unity mural," he said, "to remind us that every person's mark matters." Maya felt drawn to the canvas. She picked up a brush and dipped it in bright teal. Paint. She pressed her palm lightly, leaving a print among the others. Jonathan stepped forward and added his handprint in soft yellow. Their prints sat side by side, two very different lives coming together on the same canvas. Maya felt a warmth spread. In her chest, she smiled at Jonathan, and he offered a shy, genuine grin in return. With the mural complete, volunteers distributed lemonade and lemonade-flavored ice pops. Children ran in circles, squealing with joy. A small band played a cheerful tune, and some people began to dance. Maya and her father sat on a low wall by the fountain. David poured her a cup of lemonade. "Look how far we've come," he said. Raising his cup, Maya clinked her cup gently against his. "Yes," she whispered. "We really did this together." That evening, a special meeting of the school board was held in the old auditorium. Seats filled with students, parents, and teachers. Maya sat in the front row with Tanya and Ben beside her, their faces glowing with pride. Jonathan sat a few rows back, flanked by his parents. When the board president called the meeting to order, the room grew silent. David stood to speak first. He spoke of his daughter's pain and how a simple act of respect could prevent so much hurt. He urged the board to adopt a clear policy. Any display of private images without permission would be considered a serious offense, consequences up to suspension for repeat offenders. Next, school principal spoke of adding digital citizenship lessons to the curriculum. A local counselor proposed monthly workshops on empathy and online etiquette. One by one, parents and students rose to pledge their support. Maya listened, her heart pounding with hope. At the end, the board voted unanimously to adopt the new policies. Cheers filled the auditorium. Tears sprang to Maya's eyes as she saw her community choose respect over ridicule. In the days that followed, Maple Ridge buzzed with renewed energy. The Unity mural was moved to a wall in the school cafeteria where students would see it every day. Posters reminding everyone to pause before you post appeared in every classroom and hallway. Teachers led discussions about kindness and the power of words. In art class, students photographed one another to create a gallery titled Faces of Maple Ridge, showing real people behind every image. Maya helped guide the project, teaching techniques for capturing truth and beauty. Jonathan's apology spread through social media. He posted a video in which he spoke directly to Maya and to the town. He admitted his mistake, spoke of the hurt he had caused, and pledged to support the new policies. He invited anyone he had wronged to reach out. His words were earnest, his tone respectful. Maya watched the video and felt a gentle relief. She realized that his actions would now help others heal. She sent him a private message. "Thank you for owning your part. Let's keep making things better." He replied with a thumbs-up emoji and the words, "I'm here." One Saturday morning, Maya organized a workshop at the community center called Lens of Kindness. Students from middle school to seniors attended. Maya taught them how to use photography to highlight moments of connection and kindness. They practiced capturing images of neighbors helping one another, of siblings, sharing a laugh, and of volunteers picking up trash by the riverbank. David watched from the back of the room, his smile wide as he saw Maya guiding others to look for beauty in everyday life. That afternoon, Jonathan arrived at the workshop with his camera. He approached Maya and said, "May I join in?" She nodded, and they worked side by side. They photographed a group of children painting a mural that read, "United We Stand." They traded tips on angles and lighting. For the first time, they saw each other not as rivals, but as fellow artists with a shared mission: to show the world what could be possible when people treated each other with dignity as the sun dipped low. The community center held a small exhibit of the workshop photos. Neighbors wandered through, pausing to admire the images. A sign at the entrance read, "Captured Moments of Respect." Maya's photo of a child's hand reaching out to help an elderly woman to her feet hung at the center of the display. Stopped and read the caption, "Every heart deserves kindness." David stood beside Maya, his arm around her shoulders. "You did this," he whispered. Maya smiled, her heart full. "We did this," she said. In the weeks that followed, Maple Ridge felt changed. People greeted one another with new warmth. Online, the town's social media pages filled with photos of neighbors helping neighbors and notes of encouragement. The school's digital citizenship class launched a student-led campaign called Respect in Every Click. Even the mayor's office sent out a monthly newsletter celebrating acts of kindness. Late one evening, Maya and her father walked through the empty square where the rally had been held. The Unity mural glowed softly under dim lights. Fireflies danced around the jars of wildflowers still lining the benches. Maya paused in front of the mural and looked up at her handprint beside Jonathan's. She pressed her palm against the wall, feeling the slight roughness of the paint. "Look how bright it is," she whispered. David put an arm around her. "It will shine for a long time," he said. Maya took a step back and raised her camera. She framed the mural and clicked the shutter. The flash lit up the handprints and the words "Dignity for All." In that moment, she captured the very heart of Maple Ridge, a story of pain and shame transformed into unity and hope. She lowered the camera and looked at her father. "Thank you," she said softly. "Everything." He smiled and squeezed her hand. They stood together in the stillness, two figures beneath the gentle glow of the mural, knowing that their story had sparked something bigger than themselves. In the heart of their small town, a promise had been made and kept, that every person would be seen, heard, and respected. And that promise would guide Maple Ridge for years to come.